I'm not sure about this. I think the role currently for a peer reviewer is very important because the possibilities to extend the content and contribute to the global knowledge is it's very important. So I see myself or my role as a peer reviewer as a bridge between the text and the readers. And for me, the important thing is to define very clear how each professional will fulfill this role, these roles to connect the research, the knowledge, the conclusions to the audience, to different audience, to different interests, to different concerns. So I believe that this position will give credibility to the journal. In a moment where there are a lot of journals, a lot of possibilities to offer knowledge to the world, but my concern is who guarantee the quality of this knowledge, who provide the credibility to this knowledge. So the identity of peer reviewers shouldn't be determinant. Once more, I think the most important thing is we need to redefine our role as one of the most important roles as an ally of an author to give credibility, to support, to suggest different point of improvement, an ally of the journal in order to guarantee the quality of the text. This maybe is one of the most challenges at this moment because readers need quality. The knowledge maybe have a lot of opportunities to be published, but at the same time, there are fake knowledge. There are bad research. There are no vulnerable conclusions. So we need to work to guarantee, support, and give credibility to this knowledge. This is a very important role. This is a very important challenge at this moment. Who guarantee the quality of the content to the audience? Because journals publish to audience, global audience in the world.
Surrounding open peer review, anonymous versus eponymous peer review are some of the most polarized subjects so far. Challenges surrounding reviewer transparency are invariably social rather than technical, up to me. So this is because transparency is strongly coupled to behavior and also the perception of how behaviors will change based on reciprocal identification. Therefore, personally, I think revealing peer reviewer identities to authors would bolster their trust in the system.
I think that we need to change the way peer review, and I think that perhaps the way in which editorial work is being done, and I think that I was saying before, we need to have a registry of all scientific studies that wants to be published, and then you need to know that who reviewed these papers and which were the opinion of these reviewers, and when they get published, perhaps you can have also opinions from readers. So, you know, you are building trust in one paper, not only because of the peer reviewing before publication, but because of the peer reviewing post-publication. And I think, as I was telling you before, I think this is important because by keeping peer reviewers blinded and confidential, they are not being recognized for their work, and most importantly, they are taking responsibility at some point on the scientific finding itself, because you as a peer reviewer, you may recommend one methodological technique and not another, or you may even reject, you may suggest rejection of a paper because you think that the topic is not as important, and then this helps make the scientific paradigm, and it is the scientific paradigm is very difficult to assess and even change when it is not working anymore if you don't know how it is built. And I think that in building the scientific paradigm, it is not only authors that are doing the research itself, but it's also the persons that, or the people that are reviewing and making judgments on that study that are also important. So I think it is critical that not only authors but reviewers and editors are published are identified in the scientific publication. And we also need to know those papers that authors wanted to publish but never got published, because these are the scientific papers. Many of them will be low quality papers, but some of them may be so new and so pioneering that they are being rejected by the scientific paradigm itself, but maybe very important papers. So I think this is the key issue here.
I envision identity and peer review as a double-edged sword, as we've been discussing across these different questions, because I think it can be both helpful and it can be harmful. It can be helpful for the reasons that we've mentioned before, in terms of fostering networking among scholars, in terms of fostering collegiality, in terms of fostering circulation of knowledge, and in terms of, very simply, just making the report itself much more useful, because the author and the reviewer can both understand where they're coming from. On the flip side, it can be harmful if there are scholars who are apprehensive about reviewing certain other scholars. For instance, scholars who might be highly respected authorities in the field. As I mentioned, junior scholars, for instance, might be apprehensive about reviewing the work of a senior scholar who could have influence over job interviews, over conference invitations, and other similar things. There also is the possibility that the author, when he or she sees who the reviewer is, might be less receptive to those comments, for instance, because of methodologies that clash or personalities that clash. However, that only occurs in certain situations with certain combinations of personalities. When both the author and the reviewer are comfortable, I do think that knowing the identity of one and the other can actually be quite helpful for fostering more fruitful academic dialogues. And in terms of, what was the second question again, Akarsha?
Yeah, so that's about, how do you think that, does the revealing peer review identities will bolster the trust of authors in the peer reviewing system?
Thank you. I actually don't think knowing the identity or not of a reviewer would really affect the author's trust in the system all that much. Because again, as I mentioned, as an author, you're trusting the journal editor or the book editor to choose a well-qualified scholar to review your work. So that it's not so much the reviewer's credentials that you're thinking about as it is the journal editor's credentials and the book editor's credentials. To a little degree, though, I think knowing the reviewer's identity could bolster the trust of the authors. Because if it's a reviewer who is especially respected in the field or who has a particularly creative methodology, then the author might be more likely to give greater weight to the comments that are being received.
Trust in the system?
I think so. Yes. If a reviewer gives feedback to an author, and the paper or the manuscript is published, and it receives positive reviews and is accepted, then it enhances the profile of the reviewer, you know. And of course, the reverse is true if the quality is not good. However, I am of the opinion that the identities of reviewers need to be given after the manuscript has been published. Of course, again, because of what we have mentioned before, when it comes to the double-blind review process. And I also am of the opinion that when it comes to the identity of reviewers, there are some reviewers who are open to having their identities known, and there are those who are not. So I think there's a balance that needs to be drawn here to ensure that quality is maintained, and work continues to be reviewed, and scholarly publications are encouraged in terms of enhancing discourse in research and whatever else it is that we do as reviewers.
I think revealing a reviewer's identity cannot go alone, and editor will need to create open channels where authors and reviewers can discuss in a more direct manner than just reviewers' comments and response to reviewers. I think that if the manuscript can be openly reviewed by a couple of reviewers, as it is mostly the case now, and the authors can directly discuss with them, and in case of disagreements, this discussion opens to other peers in the field, then it could lead to higher quality papers being published. Again, this all comes back to what we do in conference presentations, open questions, and often that lead to discussion, sometimes, late after the session is over. I think we are getting a bit there with the new pre-publication systems, but that would need to be maybe more formatted, like having like a proper way of doing, as we are doing now with this two blinded peer reviewer system that we do have at the moment, but like allow the process to go one step further with this open discussion.
That's a new development. That's a new development. And of course, everything is changing, and I'm sure those peer review system coming up is for the purpose of improving scientific knowledge, scientific openness, and things like that. So when with adoption of those new development, the authors, it could make the authors trust the system. It could make the authors trust the system, and as I said earlier, authors will trust the system more when the reviewers happen to be those that are superior to them in terms of expertise, and when the privacy of the authors or the suggestions of the authors are respected in terms of those that don't want to review their manuscript. So it will be welcome. The new system will be welcome to my perspective in two situations: when those reviewing the manuscript are superior in expertise, and when the editors did not choose or send their manuscript to those that they don't want, or those the authors felt they could be rivals to them in that field of research.